Welcome to Podjunction Podcast, a show for podcasters who want to use their podcast to grow their business. I'm your host, Sadaf Beynon, and today I'm joined by John Roman, an entrepreneur, an investor, and currently serving as the CEO of BattleBox. And very, very recently has started hosting the ASOM Pod. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, we dropped the first episode last Thursday, so it's perfect timing.
Yeah, that was great. I enjoyed listening to it. It was good. So, John, I know you've been a guest on so many podcasts, and you very recently, obviously, launched your own ASOM Pod. Tell us about the inspiration behind that.
Sure. So, I have been on a lot of other people's podcasts, probably a few dozen at this point, and one of the reasons I do them, I enjoy talking through things that are working or not working for us in hopes that there's that aha moment for, someone listening where they're like, oh, I can try this, or, oh, I was going to do that, but I know about this now, so I'm not going to. Mm-hmm. And about a year ago, I had a weekly call with our development agency that we use. And the call was, at first going through like whatever projects we're working on, but then it turned into this, like, just talking about what's working, what's not working. And we realized there was probably a lot of like takeaways for anybody listening to us. So we're like, we're going to start recording this. We're meeting anyway. Let's just record it, see if there's anything good, and just drop it on social, in just short, digestible, 1 minute, 2 minute clips. And we did that for a few months, and we were like, man, something's missing. Like, we're trying to think through what's missing. And, he runs an agency and I run a brand, and we're like, there's, maybe there's other perspectives we're not thinking of. So I reached out to a gentleman named Jimmy Kim, who runs an email platform called SendLane. And he could write a master class on social. Like, they're not their entire model, but they literally just build pipeline of potential prospects through social, where he's just offering value, education, best practices in the email arena, and that in turn becomes this funnel for the SendLane company. So reached out to him and said, hey, I have this wild idea. We have an agency guy. I'm running a brand. You run software that's slightly different, so you probably have a slightly different lens on all this stuff in e-com. And he was like, man, I have the same idea, and like showed me like notes. Like, we were both like having the same thought. Mm-hmm. He then found, right, we need one more, a marketer, and he found a marketer that was the perfect fit, and that was it. So ASOM, ASOM, agency, SaaS, operator, marketer. So it's 4 unique perspectives, and we were off to the races. A little different. We film it in person, which is quite unusual in a post COVID world. And yeah, that's it.
That's very cool. So, I love how you've got all 4 of you there with the different perspectives speaking into, one idea or thought. I think that's a very cool, well-rounded conversation, I'd expect.
That's the hope. That's the hope, that it provides this full picture of topics in e-com.
Yeah. So how do you guys, how do you manage that? Because I mean, how often do you record? How do you, like, the logistics around it?
So we're not doing ourselves any favors. So I live in Atlanta. Okay. Jimmy lives in Austin. Amir lives in Chicago, and Brian lives in the Northeast. He lives in Connecticut.
Oh, wow.
So we're geographically spread. So last month we filmed the first 4 episodes. Okay. I have a newborn, so I'm not able to travel, or I wasn't able to travel. So everybody flew in to Atlanta. We had dinner on a Thursday night, and all day Friday we filmed the 4 episodes. Next month there's a conference, Sub Summit, that all of us are actually going to.
Oh, cool.
So we're just two birds, one stone.
Mm-hmm.
We're all going to be in this place for 3 days. So we grabbed a studio
Yeah.
for a few hours on Monday and a couple hours on Tuesday. We'll knock out 4 more episodes, and then we're doing at the conference we're doing a live episode. So we'll have 5 after next week to add to the pipeline,
Yeah.
and after that it'll
Yeah.
just be once a month, one day somewhere. So they came to Atlanta, so I believe in July we're going to go up to Connecticut, and Brian will host us. So it's quite a time commitment,
Yeah.
going out of town to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. And yeah, Sub Summit next week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Matt Edmondson's going to be there too. You know him from the e-commerce
Yeah,
podcast, don't you? Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool. So going back to the 4 of you guys with your different perspectives, how do you, like say you've got a topic, how do you make sure that each one of you contributes a unique perspective to the discussion?
Sure. So I think honestly, it was us selecting who the 4 of us are,
Mm-hmm.
and because of that, it's not an issue, right? We have 4
Mm-hmm.
people that are very opinionated, some more reserved than others,
Mm-hmm.
um, and one that loves to chat. So I think it was in the selection process of the 4 of us.
Yeah.
It's not an issue, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
all 4 of us will keep talking. If anything, it's more of a challenge for the editing, making sure we can get it down to digestible with everybody's viewpoint coming.
Yeah.
And to be fair, there's some points where I might be a little bit louder and
Mm-hmm.
I might lead that conversation. There's times where
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy might lead it, or Amir, or Brian. So
Yeah.
I think reality, we're still figuring it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
We filmed one day together, and that
Yeah.
day that we filmed, you say you like the first episode. First episode is the first time all 4 of us are having like a conversation. So
Yeah.
it gets better actually,
Mm.
because it took a little bit to like understand each other and
Yeah.
understand flow. So I
Mm-hmm.
think we'll just get better as it keeps going.
Absolutely. Yeah. So actually, you said that you recorded 4 in one go, right? In one
Yeah.
sitting. So how did you manage to keep the energy levels up? Because it can be draining, right? Like,
Yeah, I mean it was roughly we got there at 9 a.m. into the
mm,
studio. We started recording at 10,
mm,
and we were done right at about 5, and that includes a little bit of a lunch break.
yeah,
I took everybody to my favorite pizza place here in Atlanta.
nice.
But it's not easy, but I think again it goes back down to the selection process, right? The 4 of
Mm,
us, we were just flowing, and we're all it's good because we're all very passionate about e-commerce.
mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, right? It's not like we're just sitting there in a panel on a topic we don't care about.
Yeah.
We were very selective with the 4 of us, but also this go around Jimmy did it, but he spent time on it,
Mm-hmm.
finding topics. So each episode we have one main topic, and finding topics that he knew all of us were passionate about, all of us could speak
Yeah.
to. One of
Yeah.
us, at least one of us, has some hot take or unpopular opinion
Mm-hmm.
on.
Mm-hmm.
So topic selection, I think, is paramount and key.
Yeah. And who are you all involved in that?
So we're still figuring it out. So the first 4, Jimmy did,
Mm-hmm.
and he's also already put the agenda for the next 4,
Great.
next week. So clearly, the way his brain works, he's good at that, right?
Yeah.
So I think will we all do it in the future? Maybe. Will we find out that that's just where he excels,
Mm.
and maybe he's the brainchild for topics.
Yeah.
I think TBD.
Mm-hmm.
He has shown
Mm.
a propensity at this point that he is really good at that.
Yeah.
So that might be something that he owns moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we're still trying to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's exciting.
I think so.
Yeah. So again, going back to the fact that you've guested on so many podcasts before, are there some key takeaways or best practices that you have, adopted for your own show?
Um, Yeah, so looking at what's out there now, we did want that was, the main driver of having these different
Mm-hmm.
perspectives,
Mm-hmm.
is because you tip a lot of times on some podcasts you really get in a group think, and they're just talking to merchants, and merchants obviously have a very
Mm-hmm.
pointed view on certain topics because they're not looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
And that was that was something we wanted to address. We wanted to pick topics where there's not everybody's in groupthink.
Mm-hmm.
People are looking at these problems with different solutions. So that was absolutely a piece. We did want to also and we're gonna probably start to incorporate guests later
Yeah.
on,
Okay.
but we didn't want to go the 100% traditional model,
Mm-hmm.
which is what we're doing today, right? Host and guest.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
wanted to try to build with the regularity of just the four hosts,
Mm-hmm.
which that still works. It's just not it it tends to not be as common.
Yeah.
But you look at the golden children of the space, like All In Podcast, for example.
Mm-hmm.
They have the mainstay, the main people that are always on, and then they sometimes they have a guest, sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
I think we'll go with that model.
Mm-hmm.
And the last piece is we want to have the entertainment value,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we don't want to always be too serious. We don't want to always just jump into it and only address the topic. You got to have entertainment, right? You got to have banter.
Mm-hmm.
You want to show the reality that we're human beings. We're
Yeah.
just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
The the first four episodes, almost all of it has it to some degree, but it might just be a trend in general. So the other three guys are all iPhone users,
Okay.
and I'm an Android user, and I dislike Apple, like, to a fault. Like, I've never owned Apple stock because I
Yeah.
don't like Apple, which is dumb.
Yeah.
I'm currently shorting Apple stock after their new release yesterday, and
Mm-hmm.
that might not be a smart move, but like I'm emotionally against Apple. Um, and Apple, credit where credit's due. Apple's done a great job on the marketing front, um, getting and I don't want to say tricking, but teaching their users to shame Android
Mm-hmm.
users by the color of our text.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's that level of that. So that's existed in the pod so far, is that
Mm-hmm.
you have three Apple users, and they're what seems like constantly chastising me for using an Android. But that's a relatable, very
Yeah.
real thing. Um, if you're an iPhone user, at
Mm.
some point you've watched and you've seen someone get chastised for not being an iPhone user, and if you're an Android user, you with certainty have been attacked for
Mm-hmm.
having green text.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that human element is kind
Mm-hmm.
of key, and in an entertainment kind of proposition.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I had a conversation with another guest that's on Podjunction, and he was talking about the parasocial dynamic. So, like when you've got co-hosts, then there'll be one person who kind of takes on the role of being the goofy one, and one that will kind of take on the role of being the serious one, or
Right.
and finding those characters
Yeah,
is,
and I
and
th- and
then.
I think we'll find them, right. Like we have an idea
Mm-hmm.
with certainty. Brian is he's definitely the funniest of the group,
Okay.
and has a very strong personality. You have a mayor who is the agency owner, and he's very I would say all four of us have great moral fiber and great
Mm-hmm.
ethics, and we always do the right thing. Amir is even a step above that. Like, he is very deliberate, um, and probably a little bit more reserved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's great because that's the character, and that's really who he is. And you know, I think Jimmy and I will go a little bit with hotter takes
Yeah.
and unpopular opinions. So
Mm-hmm.
I think it's exactly that, right? Um, it's not necessarily even character development with us because it's just really
Yeah.
us.
Yes.
But I think we'll find what works and
Mm-hmm.
what flows best in the group.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's very cool. So you've touched a little bit on this, but John, would you go into a bit more detail about what your primary goals are for ASOM Pod, both in terms of content and audience engagement?
Sure. So I would say there's multiple goals, right? So I don't think anybody's just gonna disagree. Content is king, and
Mm-hmm.
and building audience is key. Um, it's a little bit um the path to new customers is a lot easier with B2B in this
Yeah.
in this in this play, right? If we're able to grow this, the amount of deal flow and funnel growth that Amir with Prella and Jimmy with Sendlane might see is probably a little bit greater than Brian with Own His Pride and myself with BattleBox.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's something to take in mind, that it works a little bit less for the direct consumer brands.
Yeah.
But there's other goals, right? So
Mm-hmm.
my biggest thing that I enjoy is being able to, give wisdom and give best practices and concepts and things that can save other people time, right?
Yeah.
If I spent, you know, TikTok, for example, when we launched it, we failed for 6 months. Um, and there were so many learnings, and knowing what we know now, we could have probably figured it out in 2 months, but
Mm-hmm.
we didn't know that. So talking about it, maybe I can, if it's just one person that understands and is like, I'm going to do this, and we're able to save 4 months of their time. Like, to me, that I get major satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
from that. So that's one element. The reality is, I would love for someone to listen and be like, "Oh, what is BattleBox? Oh, this is cool."
Yeah.
Um, you know, Hearing about John talk about the company, it's very, very clear that the customer experience is one of the most important things, and
Mm-hmm.
this could be something that I want to join. So
Mm-hmm.
absolutely hope for that. Um, I think it also positions us as what we are, which is thought leaders in the space,
Yeah.
and there's value there as a merchant. Um, you know, with the two brands, Brian and myself on there, there'll become opportunity maybe for new tech that we can use. Maybe we'll get a discount,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they'll want to sponsor and we can, you know, try it out. I think there's going to be little synergies like that, that could absolutely be cool. Um, so yeah, so it's not one. It's such a clearer path if it's if you're a B2B,
Yeah.
on growing the funnel. It's a little bit less of a
Mm-hmm.
clear path, and there's multiple angles
Mm-hmm.
when you're actually a merchant.
Yeah. So in your case, then, what kind of benefits do you think you'll get out of, like for BattleBox in particular? I mean, get out of hosting Awesome Pod.
Yeah, so BattleBox in particular, so there's with the growth of audience, there's going to it's the you know rising tide. What is I don't even know what is it? Rising tide raises all ships. Is that saying? I don't know. We can we can
Sounds
we can,
sounds right.
sounds right. We can cut that
Yeah.
part out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It
so
sounds right.
yeah, we'll just Google it really quick. Now I'm curious.
Yeah. Do it.
Raising rising tide lifts all boats.
Ah, okay. Close.
Okay.
Yeah.
So purely just getting BattleBox out there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's going in a means that we traditionally don't do, right? This isn't meta advertising. This isn't TikTok advertising.
Yeah.
Um, you're gonna get more eyeballs, and in general, more people to the website, and
Mm-hmm.
more people to the website, more people will convert. So,
Yeah.
absolutely will grow that. There's there's BattleBox. There's also Battle Brands, which owns BattleBox,
Mm-hmm.
and there's an arm of Battle Brands, which is Battle Ventures.
Okay.
So we've made So this year alone, we've made two investments in SaaS companies.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very interesting investment criteria where we have to use the product.
Mm-hmm.
We have to like the product. We have to think that there's an edge with this product. And more importantly, we have to be able to be active and bring value. So it's not just dumb money. It's we think we can help
Yeah.
um, in some aspect, whether it's finding them new customers or advisory.
Mm.
There's got to be a value we can bring, and it's got to be a great product that's actually in our tech stack. So we made two investments so far this year,
Okay.
and you know that those opportunities came from pure network, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just literally crossed the desk because of the relationships and network we've built, and I think this will allow that to grow further too. I think we'll
Yeah.
see additional deal flow, additional opportunities. Um, is BattleBox in acquisition mode at the moment?
Mm.
Not necessarily, but I wouldn't say we ever are, but when opportunities arise, we typically act on them. So BattleBox has acquired a few brands through the years.
Mm-hmm.
Some have panned out, some have not. But again, all of those came through current network and current relationships. Never like a deal site or a business for sale site or anything like that. So I think, the deal flow of potential opportunities and partnerships, I think that increases as well. So
Mm-hmm.
I really think that this putting yourself out there, garnering, further audience, it really is just going to rise. The tide rises all boats, right? So it's not one boat, new deal, new customers. It's a bunch of boats.
Yeah.
And I think it's just getting the brand out there and getting myself out there will
Mm-hmm.
rise everything.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. It is great for networking. So, going back to your first podcast that you've now recorded, how are you gonna edit them? Who out of the four of you is looking after that side of things?
So it's Brian. So
Okay.
Brian is the marketer, and he's doing the editing.
Hmm.
We didn't do him any favors the first go around, so we didn't know what we didn't know, and we
Yeah.
found a great studio here in Atlanta.
Hmm.
Um, but we had they had an audio setup that
Okay.
all flowed into a mixer, and then we
Mm-hmm.
brought in a great friend of mine, Jeremy Miller,
Mm-hmm.
um, very talented. He brought in several high-end cameras,
Mm-hmm.
and he filmed us all. We didn't think about it, but having all the audio feed in the mixer was a mistake, right? We needed dedicated mic per camera,
Yeah.
because that just makes editing a lot easier, especially with AI capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
where you can automatically, swap to the person speaking, and it just became very problematic,
Mm.
because we didn't have that separation. So the editing time probably took Brian three times as long as it will moving forward. Now that we know the mic rule,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, he
Yeah.
right now he's editing it. We found we referred to a couple people
Mm-hmm.
that are in a very uh, small capacity, helping us with some shorts,
Okay.
vertical less than a minute content.
Mm.
There's a lot of AI tools too that will do it as well. So if
Mm.
you look at um, the ones that started dropping this week, we've had help with. But if
Okay.
you look at the four shorts that
Mm-hmm.
we dropped the week of launch,
Yeah.
all of those shorts were completely AI.
Okay.
And just to clarify to listeners, AI editing. So
Yeah.
it took our giant hour-long clip,
Mm-hmm.
and it came up with a bunch of short digestible. I think for those we used Opus.
Opus. Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah,
Had you trialed that before? Why did you decide on Opus?
yeah, Opus. Is it Opus Pro? Yeah, Opus Pro,
Hmm.
which is just instant AI clip generation.
Yeah.
I had used it before. Brian uses it
Hmm.
every day
Right.
in
Okay.
his normal marketing
Hmm.
job.
Right. Okay.
Um, it throws up subtitles. It's fast.
Yeah.
You obviously have to tweak it a little bit sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
You
so he was
still
just,
need the human element, don't you?
yeah, it just gets,
Mm.
I would say like most things AI wise right now, it gets it from 0 to 80%, 0 to 85%. And then
Yeah.
you finish it off. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's all about the time savings, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We tried to do some of that using AI, but I mean it's almost a year ago now, and so much it changes so quick, doesn't it? Develops so fast.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I find myself where I'm
Mm,
like, oh, I used this tool a year ago and like wasn't very good.
yeah.
And I catch myself. I'm like, well, I've used ChatGPT from the start and I use it every
Mm,
day. And think
mm-hmm.
about how much better that's gotten.
Yes.
They're all that way. They've all vastly, not
Mm,
all, but most have vastly improved. And with what Meta did with their open source AI, that kind of gave a lot of people the ability to even go faster
yeah.
in the mix. So it's, yeah, like I find myself, I used Opus and 6 months ago, 7 months ago, and I wasn't the biggest fan.
Mm-hmm.
But then I talked to Brian, and Brian's like, "Yeah, it's great now." And
Yeah.
it's like, "Oh, I guess I should look at it again." Yeah, the AI SaaS space is super super
Mm,
interesting right now.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So were there any other learnings that came out of the first few that you've done together?
Yeah, if you watch the first episode, I clearly don't know how to use a microphone. So again, we were in a podcast studio. They were
Mm,
directional mics. So like
yeah.
this mic here, like I can talk anywhere. It's just going to capture it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Directional mic, you have to be
Yeah.
basically on it. And no one told me that during the first episode. And the sound guy, luckily, when we were done with the first, was like, "Hey,
Yeah.
if you could get a little bit closer to your mic," and he adjusted some audio
Hmm.
levels. But I clearly didn't know how to use a mic on the first episode, or at least a directional mic.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a few comments already about it. My dad
Yes,
sent
I've
me
seen those.
yeah, my dad sent me an email. He's like, "Hey," he's like, "why are you speaking in the mic?" Like, Dad, I can't go back and fix this. Like, this is it. This is live. I understand. I was
Yeah.
there. So figuring it out.
Yeah. 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 And I know this is early days, but have you had any feedback from your listeners and or any comments where you think their feedback might shape the way you approach future episodes?
Um, so there hasn't been too much proactive, right?
Mm,
All of the proactive has been the "Hey, great job, I love it,"
yes.
which it's nice to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't bring a lot of value, right?
Yeah.
Because typically it's the same idea when you have like a business idea or some, harebrained idea, like you don't ask your friends.
Mm,
Because your friends are just they're gonna be your cheerleaders, and
yeah.
that's great, but it's not. Sometimes you want the hard truth and you want to know, how
Mm-hmm.
do I get better, or what's wrong with this concept or idea?
Yeah.
And it's a little bit tougher to get proactively, right? We've had a couple. Uh we've had a couple people just proactively offer some advice that was constructive, and
Mm-hmm.
some suggestions which we've 100% taken to heart, and will. I
Yeah.
think there's going to be, we'll probably do some outreach after the second and third episode drop, and just try to better understand
Mm-hmm.
um some people a little bit outside our network, what they think and what they like and what they most importantly don't like, so we can try
Yeah.
to improve a little bit.
Yeah. I guess as your audience grows too, you'll have a better understanding of what it is they're looking for and what they like, what they don't like.
Exactly.
So, John, in 60 seconds or less, can you tell us why you think podcasting is a great marketing tool to grow one's business?
Sure. So I think it's an absolute for B2B. I think you could argue whether it is, you have to look at it in a completely different lens when you're talking about a direct to consumer brand. There's benefit, but I think the business has to have some maturity to it. And you have to be very strategic. As I said earlier, there's multiple ships in that port. On the B2B side, it's really it's a no-brainer, right? You're gonna have, I'm gonna struggle to keep this in 60 seconds, but the reality is, the just like consumer behavior has buying behavior has changed over time, so has, B2B purchase behavior, right? Before you used to take a phone call, have the demo, try to make a decision. Now it's almost a research piece, right? Like, you're going to your community, whether it's LinkedIn or you're in a Slack group, or Reddit, like or a Facebook group, there's hundreds of, and you're asking the community, and you're listening to the community on the right solution, whether it's an email provider or an agency. Like, you're really listening, for the right answer. And that's changed so much, right? Before, it was very, you got the email and that's how you decided to meet with someone. So because of that, um, you there's an opportunity where B2B leaders can be in the space as thought leaders, providing value, talking about the topics that everyone wants to talk about and know about anyway. And that way, Jimmy is the example. Jimmy does this great job providing free value and best practices when it comes to email. And all of a sudden, you're mad at Klaviyo, or you're looking for a new email provider, and Jimmy comes to mind. Well, maybe SendLane's an option. I always see Jimmy's posts. Jimmy's interacting with my posts. So, that's the new way of selling, right? It's all about the non-overly aggressive traditional sales process, and more just relationship building. And that's done through content, whether it's traditional posting or it's video and podcasts. And I think the traditional model that a lot of B2B companies do, where it's host and guest, it's great for networking, right? You're going to build your network, and eventually, just, organically, people you talk to and guests, and then friends of guests are going to have a need, and you're the first person they think to go to, right? And I think that's where it's of value. Content is key, content is king, and podcast piece checks that content box, but it also checks the building your network box.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was way longer than a minute. I apologize.
And that's totally okay. That was a lot of good stuff that you said there. So it really doesn't matter at all. But you're right. It is very much a softer sell. And you're warming up leads without even realizing it. And the leads are getting warmed up without even realizing it, in some sense, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just but it's people want community, right? And that checks the community box.
Absolutely. John, thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. It's our pleasure. And it's been really great talking to you, especially when you're so early on in your journey, and just kind of picking your brains as to how things are going and which direction you want to head in. So I'm going to definitely have you back in a few months' time.
Awesome.
And see how you're getting on. I think
I would love that.
Interesting.
Hopefully it's a good story. Hopefully we've grown.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure.
All right.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Podjunction Podcast and for being part of our journey. Be sure to check out ASOM Pod for some great insights into the e-commerce world. If you found this episode helpful, we'd love for you to leave a review or share it with someone who could also benefit. I'm Sadaf Beynon. Thanks for listening. Bye for now. And that brings us to the end of today's episode of Podjunction, where business meets podcasting. If you've enjoyed the insights from this episode and want to grab the show links, head over to podjunction.com. And while you're there, we'd love for you to sign up to the newsletter too. Whether you listen while on the go or in a quiet moment, thank you for letting us be a part of your day. Remember, every episode is a chance to gain insights and to transform your podcasting journey. So keep tuning in, keep learning, and until next time, happy podcasting.